Yeah, mad. Absolutely mad.
What the hell is happening?
A factory in Maranello. Midnight. Engineers aren't sleeping. They're rewriting the rule book, one gear at a time. On paper, Ferrari looked ready. The SF26 weighed just 770 kilograms at its January launch, 2 kilograms over the minimum, while Aston Martin was reportedly 40 kilograms overweight and scrambling. Ferrari looked lean, dangerous, and prepared. That confidence lasted exactly one qualifying session. Melbourne, front row, locked out by Mercedes by 0.8 of a second. Not 0.08, 0.8, a chasm. So here's the question the paddock isn't asking loudly enough. How does a team that looked this ready fall this far behind? And more importantly, what are they doing about it that nobody's talking about? Because what's happening inside Maranello right now isn't a panic, it's a revolution. To understand Ferrari's position, you have to start where the gap is being born. Not in the corners, but on the straights. Mercedes cracked something Ferrari hasn't. Their harvest to deployed loop is simply more efficient. George Russell and Kimi Antonelli aren't just faster on the straights, they're faster for longer. The rear wing opens, the boost kicks in, and the gap just grows. Ferrari's drivers can see them pulling away, and there's nothing they can do about it. The technical term for what's hurting Ferrari is superclipping. The battery hits its deployment limit, the power drops off sharply, and suddenly, that Ferrari advantage at the start of every straight evaporates. But here's where the story gets interesting. Instead of chasing Mercedes by trying to replicate the W17's straight-line harvesting approach, Ferrari's engineering leadership made the opposite call. Enrico Gualtieri's powertrain team doubled down on their own philosophy.
The 0676 uses a smaller Honeywell Garrett turbine that spools faster than Mercedes' larger unit. That faster spool-up means less electrical energy gets wasted spinning the turbo during acceleration. Ferrari's theory? Recover energy more efficiently in corners, then deploy it on the straights to compensate for the raw power deficit. And to push that philosophy to its limit, they made a decision that sounds completely wrong. They started deliberately dropping to a lower gear in slow corners. Not because the gearbox is struggling, because they want the engine spinning faster when the car is going slower. By holding a lower gear through corners like Suzuka's hairpin, Ferrari keeps the MGUK, the electrical motor generator, recovering energy at a significantly faster rate. Under the 2026 regulations, that system produces 350 kilowatts, roughly 470 horsepower of electrical output, triple what the old hybrid system delivered. The trade-off is real. More heat, more mechanical stress, completely different braking points for the drivers. Hamilton and Leclerc had to trust the math before committing to different downshift points at racing speed. But that was just the start. Because Ferrari didn't just show up to Suzuka with a new energy strategy, they brought the wing. The Macarena, named jokingly by team principal Fred Vasseur for its dance-like flipping motion, both upper-rear wing profiles rotate approximately 270 degrees when activated, flipping effectively inverted, producing lift instead of downforce on the straights. During Bahrain testing, Hamilton gained roughly 10 kilometers per hour with the system active compared to a conventional wing. It sounded like a weapon. Then, Shanghai happened. During first practice, Hamilton entered the braking zone at turn 6, and the car snapped. The front movable wing was closing faster than the rear Macarena completed its rotation. That timing mismatch lightened the rear axle at the exact moment Hamilton needed maximum stability under braking. He spun. His radio message was immediate. Brakes locked up. Ferrari pulled the system off both cars after a single session. Hamilton later questioned whether the wing should have been deployed at China at all, suggesting the team had rushed it and that the Macarena wasn't supposed to appear until round 4 or 5. But here's the thing, even without it, Hamilton finished on the podium, which tells you something about the underlying pace of the SF26 chassis, and the data collected in that one chaotic practice session became the foundation for a revised version now heading to Suzuka. A more sophisticated Macarena with differentiated closing times depending on corner type. Real-world calibration that a wind tunnel simply cannot replicate. If it works, the math changes dramatically.
But none of this technical ambition matters without the right man in the cockpit. And after what Lewis Hamilton himself described as his least successful season in decades, something has shifted. He spoke openly about needing to completely unplug after Abu Dhabi. He undertook what he called the most intense training program of his career, starting on Christmas Day. He integrated a new race engineer. He adopted a different mental framework entirely. The result? In China, he stood on the podium for the first time in a Ferrari. His words afterward carried quiet certainty. "I definitely feel like I'm back to my best, both mentally and physically. I do think there's more to come." That last line matters most, because the ceiling hasn't been found yet. The 2026 regulations, narrower, lighter cars with a more balanced hybrid power distribution, appear to suit Hamilton's driving style far more naturally than the ground effect era that preceded them. Analysts had pointed out that the new regulations have effectively reset the conditions in a way that plays to his strengths. And internally at Ferrari, the dynamic has shifted. In 2025, Leclerc held a clear advantage through familiarity. That gap has been significantly reduced. The intra-team battle is now far more evenly matched, and Hamilton has emphasized how much it is meant to have his feedback genuinely integrated into the SF26's development. Unlike his first season, where he inherited a package built without his input, he now feels heard. "To see them listen and put some of those things I'd asked for on the car," he said, "I'm incredibly grateful." But underneath the momentum, three fault lines are quietly widening. The first is the performance gap itself. Hamilton acknowledged in race trim the deficit to Mercedes sits around 4 to 5 tenths of a second per lap. That's not marginal. The gap narrowed from 8 tenths in Melbourne qualifying to roughly 4 tenths in Shanghai. The rate of convergence matters more than any single snapshot, but Ferrari is not yet in a position to dictate terms.
The second fault line is fuel chemistry. The 2026 regulations mandate fully sustainable fuel for the first time in Formula One history. Ferrari and Shell chose the biofuel route. Mercedes and Petronas chose synthetic e-fuel, and so did the fuel suppliers for McLaren, Williams, and Alpine. Ferrari and Haas are the only two teams on the entire grid running Shell's biofuel formulation. Behind closed doors, the question of whether Shell's fuel keeps pace with the Petronas blend has become increasingly difficult to ignore. The estimated deficit from fuel chemistry alone sits somewhere between 15 and 20 horsepower, concentrated at precisely the high engine speeds where Ferrari already struggles. And under current regulations, Ferrari cannot change fuel suppliers mid-season. The only mitigation path runs directly through engine calibration and energy management optimization, which brings us right back to the lower gear strategy. The third fault line is weight. At launch, the SF26 sat just 2 kilograms over the minimum weight limit, a genuinely impressive figure. By late March, that picture is changed. Development components, the twin Macarena actuators, aerodynamic additions, the car has crept well above its lean launch specification. In a formula where electrical systems now contribute nearly half the total power output, every kilogram costs more than it ever did before. The aerodynamic gains have to justify their mass penalty. That calculation has not yet been fully resolved at Maranello. So heading into Suzuka, 3 paths open up. Scenario 1, the Macarena runs clean. The lower gear harvesting strategy delivers measurable results. Another tenth disappears from the Mercedes advantage, and Ferrari leaves Japan with genuine momentum heading into the Miami B-Spec upgrade package. The championship picture begins to look very different by mid-season. Scenario 2, the weight problem compounds. The revised Macarena fails under race conditions again. The fuel chemistry gap proves larger than Maranello estimated, and Ferrari's ADO gamble, waiting for the FIA's development window to open after 6 races, becomes the only remaining card to play. A patient strategy in a season that may already be slipping.
Scenario 3. Ferrari's corner harvesting philosophy proves perfectly suited to Suzuka's specific demands. Hamilton wins at a circuit he knows like the back of his hand. Leclerc completes his adaptation to the SF26, and suddenly the team that was supposed to be one step behind takes a step forward at exactly the right moment. Because Suzuka doesn't just test pace, it tests precision, confidence, and the ability to hold every thread together at once. Ferrari has the chassis, they have the driver, they have the ambition, but does the math close fast enough? Can a corner harvesting philosophy built around a smaller turbo overcome a fuel chemistry gap of 15 to 20 horsepower that no one can officially admit exists? And when the ADO window finally opens, will the fix arrive in time for the circuits that actually decide championships? One thing is certain, this season isn't being decided on the straights alone. It's being decided in laboratories, in gear selection algorithms, in fuel blending plants in Hamburg, and in the mind of a 7-time world champion who believes for the first time in 2 years that he's back. Tell me, is Ferrari genuinely closing the gap, or is this the most beautifully engineered mirage in modern Formula One?